Hi class, this is course 2, lesson 43, and we are going to convert between decimals and fractions, fractions and decimals, and percents and decimals. And so basically, after you really familiarize yourself with these three processes, you can change from decimals to percents and fractions. You can change between those three forms of numbers very easily. If you have a decimal and you want to change it to a fraction, you write the value that is to the right of the decimal, and then as a fraction, because that's what we want, the place value of this last digit goes in the denominator. And there are three places. Here's the other way that you can remember this. This is thousandths, but if you write a 1 and then you put zeros for those three digits, that's your place value. That's the thousandths place. Now, you must reduce your fractions. Okay? Make sure you reduce them. You know, how you decide to divide, that's up to you. I know that I can divide both of these by 25. I know that 25 is a common factor. And if you're thinking money, that always helps. So I can look at this and say, well, in $1.25, how many quarters are there? Well, there would be 5. And then if I take 25 here and I divide that into 100, I would get 4. And then I still have a 0. Now, am I completely reduced yet? No, because 5 and 40 have 5 as a common factor, so I can divide both of those by 5, and I get 1/8. So my decimal 125 thousandths is equivalent to 1/8 as a fraction. Okay, so let's take a look at some fractions that we're going to convert into decimals. Easy ones would be fractions like 23 out of 100. Place values that are tens, hundreds, thousands, anything that has a power of 10 in the denominator, those you just write as the place value. So 23 hundredths, you know that as 0 decimal 2 3, because this would be the tenths and the hundredths. Likewise, I don't know, 7 out of 10 would be decimal point 7. So if you have a power of 10 in the denominator, those are going to be really simple for you to make from fraction to decimal. If you have improper fractions, you already know how to make them into, so let's take the fraction 9/4. You already know how to do that from an improper fraction to a mixed number. You're doing the same process. You're just not making a fraction. You're going to continue with the decimal. So we just divide this. Okay, so 4, remember your divisor is the number in the denominator. 4 goes into 9 how many times? 2. Okay, and then at this point, this is where you'd say, oh, it's 2 1/4. But we're not going to do that. We need to write it as a decimal, so we need to add a 0 and a decimal, and since we added a decimal, we're going to just put that decimal right up. 4 will go into 10 how many times? 2, 8, 2. Now, you keep going. Once you start a decimal, you have to keep going until it terminates or it repeats. 4 will go into 20 how many times? 5, 20, 0. So 9/4 is the same thing as 2 and 25 hundredths. Okay. One other fraction to decimal that we should take a look at would be if you have a whole number already. So if we have like 3 1/4, you know that the 3 is the whole number, so that's going to stay in front of the decimal. Now, hopefully you know that 1/4 is the decimal 25/100ths. If not, you would divide it just like we did up here. But that is how you use that whole number. That is going to stay in front of the decimal. The last type of decimal that we should look at would be like the decimal 1/3. We would have to divide it. So 3 becomes the divisor. 3 goes into 1 how many times? That'd be a 0, and the decimal goes there. Add the 0 behind the decimal. 3 times 3. Subtract, I get a 1. I put a 0 up there. 3 goes into 10 3 times. Notice that this is going to continue this pattern. It's 3, 3, 3, 3. And we talked about how when you have a repeating 3, you're going to round it, and you're going to say, or not round it, you're going to truncate it with the repetend bar. So you're going to put the repetend bar over the digit that repeats. Now notice I didn't write 3 and then 3 repeating, because this 3 here repeats. That's how you get this one. So make sure that you're only putting the repetend bar over the first digit, or over the digit that repeats the first time. Percent to decimal, if you have like 20%, this is 20 out of 100. And this is a fraction, right? We're not in decimal form yet. But I know that 20 out of 100 is the decimal point to 0. I need 20 hundredths. This is 20 hundredths. What you can see, though, is that anytime you want to, since we're dividing by 100, every time we want to make a percent into a decimal, what we really end up doing is dividing this number by 100, which moves the decimal 2 places to the left. Okay? So we had 20, and the decimal would have been here. And what we would end up doing then is moving it 2 places to the left, which we did over here. Okay? Notice that you drop the percent sign, then move decimal 2 places to the left. Okay? I'm going to give you an example of a really tricky problem that tends to trip students up. Okay, so make sure that you star this one, or you refer back to it when you're changing percents to decimals. Okay, if you have like 5.7%, you still have to go through this process. You have to drop the percent sign. Okay, now you did that, right? That does not mean that you are done. All you did was drop the percent sign. You still need to move the decimal 2 places to the left. So you would end up with 1, 2 right here. So your answer then would be, I'm going to put a leading 0 because my decimal goes here. I need to fill in with a 0. Okay? Now, remember that percent means out of 100. And so if we want to write it as a decimal, we need to divide by 100. So I cannot have 5.7 as my answer to the decimal form of 5.7%. That doesn't work. Okay, these two numbers need to be different, and they need to be different by the percent sign. Okay, the percent sign needs to be gone, and over here we have the decimal moved from here to here. Okay. Okay, that's how you change from percent to decimal. Be very aware that it is a two-step process. Okay, make sure that you're doing 2 steps when you change from percent to decimal, and then you'll do these correct every single time. Okay, that's it for lesson 43. If you have questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I will see you in class.